Way, way before Europeans even thought about crossing the Atlantic, the Americas were buzzing with these incredible civilizations. They built massive empires, completely against the odds. Today, we're going to dive into the amazing ingenuity of the Maya, the raw power of the Aztecs, and the mind-boggling reach of the Inca.
But here's the thing that really ties them all together. It's one big question that fueled everything they did. How in the world do you build a massive, thriving empire in some of the toughest, most unforgiving landscapes on the planet?
Okay, so take a look at this map. It really puts it all into perspective. Up here in the blue, you've got the Maya, who literally had to carve their world out of the thick, dense jungles of the Yucatan. Then, in red, the Aztecs, who had this wild idea to build their capital city on a swampy island, and stretching all the way down the coast in yellow. That's the Inca, who built an empire along the crazy high peaks of the Andes. Each one faced a challenge that seems, well, pretty much impossible. So the big question is, how on earth did they pull it off? Well, they didn't just get by in these environments. No, they completely mastered them. And this is where you really start to see their genius. Let's break it down. Each of them had a totally unique problem to solve. For the Maya, it was the jungle. It was relentless. How do you clear enough of that to feed your people? For the Aztecs, their problem was water, everywhere. How do you build a massive city on what's basically a swamp? And for the Inca, well, they were literally fighting gravity itself. How do you farm on mountainsides that are almost vertical? The Aztec solution is just wow. They didn't go looking for more land, they made it. They built these things called chinampas, or floating gardens. Basically, they scooped up all this nutrient-rich mud from the bottom of the lake and piled it up to create new, super fertile farmland right on the water. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of engineering. Meanwhile, the Inca, dealing with their own huge problem, came up with something just as incredible: terrace farming. They literally carved gigantic steps into the sides of the mountains. This created flat land for farming, it stopped the soil from washing away, and it let them control the water. They basically turned the entire Andes mountain range into one massive, productive garden.
Okay, so they conquered their landscapes. Amazing. But how did they organize all the people to get this stuff done? Well, the way their societies were structured was just as important to their success.
One thing all three of them had in common was a really strict social pyramid. And get this, at the very top, you had a tiny elite, royalty and nobility, that made up maybe 2% of the population. Just 2%. And they held all the power. Then came the warriors, and then the whole system was held up by the 80% at the bottom, the common people and farmers, who really made the empires run. Now, while that pyramid shape was similar, the person at the very, very top was different. The Maya weren't really one giant unified empire. They were more like a collection of powerful, independent city-states, and each one had its own god-king. But the Aztecs and Inca? Oh no. They had one supreme ruler, the emperor or the Sapa Inca, who was seen as a god on earth and had absolute power over everything. All right, we've talked land, we've talked people. Now we get to the stuff that is just truly mind-blowing. Their achievements in science, technology, and engineering are things that still leave us scratching our heads today. The Maya were obsessed with time. I mean, obsessed. They were master astronomers and created not one, but two incredibly precise calendars that worked together, one for farming and one for their religion. And their math skills were off the charts. They independently came up with the concept of zero, which is a huge deal, and it let them make these incredibly complex calculations. And just look at this. Their calendars weren't just charts and numbers. They were these sacred, beautiful works of art that mapped out their entire understanding of the universe. The level of detail is just breathtaking. On top of all that, the Maya were the only civilization in the ancient Americas to have a complete, fully developed writing system. They used around 800 complex symbols to write down everything: their history, their myths, their science. It was a true written language, not just pictures. Now, when it comes to the Aztecs, you just have to talk about their capital city, Tenochtitlan. It was an absolute masterpiece of engineering. I mean, think about it. A massive city built in the middle of a lake, connected by these giant causeways. At its peak, it was one of the biggest cities in the entire world, home to almost 400,000 people. Just incredible. So the Inca had a different problem. How do you manage a gigantic empire without a writing system?
Their solution was this ingenious device called the quipu. It was a collection of knotted strings. The colors of the strings, the types of knots, where they were placed, it all meant something. It was basically a three-dimensional database for tracking everything from taxes to history.
And right here, you see two perfect examples of Incan brilliance. On one side, there's the quipu, their incredible data-keeping system, and on the other, their legendary stonework. They cut these massive stones so precisely that they fit together perfectly with no mortar at all. You can't even slide a piece of paper between them. That's why their buildings are still standing today, even after centuries of earthquakes.
So we know these great empires eventually fell. They faced everything from civil wars to, of course, the Spanish conquest. But, and this is a really big but, that's not where their story ends. Not by a long shot. Their legacy is very, very much alive today. Seriously, their influence is everywhere. You've got millions of people who still speak languages like Quechua and Nahuatl. And think about the food on your plate. Corn, beans, squash, those are now staples all over the world. And we have Inca to thank. Their traditions, their crafts, their incredible buildings, it all continues to inspire us.
You know, this quote about the Maya really hits the nail on the head. Even after the huge empires collapsed and the big cities were abandoned, the people didn't just vanish. No way. Their cultures changed, they adapted, and they endured, weaving their past right into the present. So yeah, the great empires are gone, and their monuments are now incredible ruins. But that spirit of innovation, that resilience, that's still with us. Which kind of leaves us with one final thought, right? What can we still learn today from these incredible masters of the Americas?